Ada's husband gave her everything. A penthouse apartment in Cheongdam-dong with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Han River. A black card with no limit. A driver who appeared whenever she needed to go somewhere. A personal stylist who made sure she looked perfect for every event. A seat at tables where billion-dollar deals happened over soju and grilled meat. All she had to do in return was simple. Smile at the right moments, dress the right way, speak when spoken to, laugh at his father's jokes, and never ever question how the money was made. For a Nigerian woman who'd grown up in Surulere, Lagos, watching her single mother work 3 jobs just to keep them fed, it seemed like a fair trade. Until she realized that silence has a price. And she was already in debt. Let me take you back to the beginning, because Ada didn't start out looking for a rich husband. That's not who she was. That's not what she wanted. She came to Seoul for an MBA. That's it. Seoul National University had given her a partial scholarship, and her mother, her incredible, unstoppable mother, had somehow scraped together the rest. Sold family land back in their village, borrowed from relatives, put everything on the line. "This is our chance," her mother had said at the airport. "Your education is the only inheritance I can give you. Don't waste it." Ada didn't plan to. She arrived in Seoul in March 2019, 26 years old, ambitious, focused. The plan was clear. Get the degree, get experience at a top company, either stay in Korea or move to Europe, and build the kind of life her mother had dreamed of but never had. Romance, dating, that could wait. She dated back in Lagos, of course, had a boyfriend through university who wanted to marry her right after graduation. Nice guy, decent family, but Ada wanted more than decent. She wanted options. She wanted to see the world first. So she came to Seoul, and for the first 6 months she stuck to the plan beautifully. Classes were intense, way more intense than she'd expected. Korean business culture, global marketing strategy, financial analysis. She studied constantly, made friends with other international students, learned just enough Korean to get by. She wasn't looking for anything else. And then she met Min-jun. It was at a networking event the university hosted. One of those things where they bring in successful alumni and corporate executives to talk to current students. Building bridges between academia and industry, or something like that. Min-jun was there representing Park Industries, his family's conglomerate. They did everything: construction, real estate development, some tech investments. Big enough that Ada had heard the name before, even though she wasn't particularly interested in Korean business families. He gave a talk about innovation in traditional industries. It was fine, professional, a little boring, honestly. But afterward, during the networking session, he came straight to her. "You're Ada, right? From the global MBA program." She was surprised he knew her name. "Yes, how did you?" "Professor Kim mentioned you in passing, said you had the best analysis in his strategy class." Min-jun smiled. "I'm always interested in meeting talented people." And just like that, they were talking. Min-jun was different from what she expected. He was 34, so 8 years older than her. Good-looking in that polished Korean way, perfectly styled hair, designer suit that fit like it was made for him, which it probably was. But he wasn't arrogant about it. He asked her questions, real questions. About her research, her opinions on emerging markets, what brought her to Korea. He didn't exoticize her, which happened a lot. Didn't ask stupid questions about Africa like some people did. He talked to her like an equal. They exchanged business cards, because that's what you do in Korea, and Ada thought that was it. Nice conversation, good connection, moving on. But 2 days later, he emailed her. Not a business email, a personal one. "I really enjoyed our conversation at the networking event. Would you be interested in continuing it over dinner? There's a great French restaurant in Gangnam I think you'd like. Let me know if you're free this weekend." Ada stared at that email for a long time. On one hand, this was Min-jun Park, heir to a massive company, way out of her league in terms of wealth and connections. This could be a great networking opportunity. On the other hand, this wasn't a networking dinner. This was a date, and getting involved with someone like him seemed complicated. But here's what Ada told herself. It's just dinner, free food, interesting conversation, what's the harm? So she said yes. That first dinner lasted 4 hours. Min-jun picked her up himself. No driver, just him in a sleek black Mercedes. The restaurant was intimate, expensive, the kind of place where they don't list prices on the menu. Ada wore the one really nice dress she'd brought from Lagos, and she felt underdressed until Min-jun told her she looked beautiful. They talked about everything. He asked about growing up in Lagos and actually listened when she told him about the chaos and the energy and the hustle. About her mother raising her alone after her father died when she was 10. About watching her mother refuse to remarry, refuse to depend on anyone, just work and sacrifice and push Ada to be better. She sounds like an incredible woman, Min-jun said. She is, Ada said simply. Min-jun told her about his own family, about being the youngest son in a traditional Korean business family, about the pressure, the expectations, how his older brother was being groomed to take over the company, which meant Min-jun had more freedom but also less purpose. Sometimes I feel like I'm just here, he said, playing a role, showing up to meetings, cutting ribbons, but not actually building anything meaningful. Ada was surprised by his honesty, surprised that someone with everything could feel empty. By the end of the night, when he drove her back to her tiny apartment near campus, Ada realized she'd just had one of the best dates of her life. And when he asked if he could see her again, she didn't hesitate. Yes, she said, I'd like that. That's how it started. For the next 3 months, they dated, quietly at first. Min-jun was careful about being seen publicly. His family was traditional, he explained, and they had expectations about who he should be with. He didn't want to deal with that pressure until he was sure about what this was. Ada understood, or at least she told herself she did. They'd meet at out-of-the-way restaurants, take drives outside the city, spend long evenings at his apartment, a massive place in Gangnam that felt more like a hotel suite than a home. Min-jun was generous, not in a flashy way, but in small gestures. He'd notice her laptop was old and slow. And the next week, there'd be a new MacBook delivered to her apartment. For your studies, he'd say casually. He'd see her struggling with the Seoul winter in her thin Lagos jacket, and suddenly there'd be a beautiful wool coat waiting for her. You need to stay warm. He never made her feel like she owed him anything. It was just care, or that's what it felt like. And Ada, who'd spent her whole life watching her mother struggle, who'd worked so hard for everything she had, started to feel something she'd never felt before. Safe. For the first time in her life, someone was taking care of her, and it felt good. They fell into a rhythm. Ada would study during the week, Min-jun would work. On weekends, they'd be together. He introduced her to his friends, other young executives, creative types, people who moved in Seoul's upper circles but weren't stuffy about it. Ada started to see a different side of Korea. Not the student life of cheap meals and crowded subways, but the career of private clubs and rooftop bars and weekend trips to Jeju on private planes. It was intoxicating. Her friends from school noticed the change. Ada, who is this guy? They'd ask. You're gone every weekend. You're wearing designer clothes now. What's going on? It's nothing serious, she'd tell them. We're just dating, having fun. But it was serious, at least for her. She was falling for him. And the scary part, she was starting to imagine a future that looked nothing like the plan she'd come to Korea with. 6 months into their relationship, Min-jun took her to Namsan Tower. It was cheesy and touristy, and so unlike him that Ada laughed when he suggested it. What? He said, mock offended. You don't want to put a love lock on the fence like every other couple in Seoul. I didn't know you were the love lock type, she teased. But they went, and it was actually perfect. The view of the city at sunset, the cool air, the two of them away from everything. They were standing at the railing, looking out over Seoul, when Min-jun said quietly, I told my family about you. Ada's heart jumped. You did what? What did they say? He was quiet for a moment. My mother wants to meet you. Ada didn't know if that was good or bad. Is that okay? She asked carefully. Min-jun turned to look at her. Ada, I need you to understand something. My family is traditional, old-fashioned. They have ideas about who I should be with, what my life should look like. They're not going to make this easy. Because I'm not Korean, Ada said flatly. Because you're not from their world, Min-jun corrected. It's not about race. Well, not entirely. It's about status. Background, they think in dynasties. Ada felt something cold settle in her stomach. So what are you saying? That this can't work? No, Min-jun said firmly. He took her hands. I'm saying it's going to be difficult, but I want to try if you do. Ada looked at this man who'd made her feel things she didn't know she could feel, who'd shown her a life she'd only dreamed about, who was standing here telling her he wanted to fight for her. I want to try, she said. He kissed her then, and souls sparkled below them, and Ada thought maybe, just maybe, this could actually work. The first meeting with his mother happened 2 weeks later. Min-jun prepared Ada extensively. What to wear, conservative but elegant. How to greet her, a proper bow, hands positioned correctly. What to say, minimal, respectful, let his mother lead the conversation. She's going to test you, he warned. That's what she does, just stay calm. They met at the main Park family house. Not Min-jun's apartment, but the actual family compound in Cheongdam-dong. The kind of place with gates and security and staff. Ada had never been this nervous in her life. Min-jun's mother, Mrs. Park, was in her early 60s. Elegant in that particular Korean way, perfectly styled short hair, expensive but understated clothes, skin that looked decades younger than her age. She greeted Ada with a polite smile that revealed nothing. Welcome, she said in Korean, then switched to perfect English. Min-jun tells me you're studying business at SNU. Yes, ma'am, Ada said, using the respectful form Min-jun had taught her. I'm in the global MBA program. And after you graduate, what are your plans? Loaded question. Ada knew it. I'm hoping to work in international business development, Ada said carefully. Possibly an emerging market strategy. Mrs. Park nodded, sipped her tea. And you're from Nigeria? Yes, ma'am, Lagos. I've never been to Africa, Mrs. Park said, as if this was somehow Ada's failing. Tell me, what does your family do? And here it was, the real question. My mother is a nurse, Ada said, lifting her chin slightly. She raised me on her own after my father passed away. She's the strongest person I know. Mrs. Park's expression didn't change. I see. No other family, siblings, extended relations. I have cousins and aunts and uncles back home, Ada said. But my mother and I are very close. Mrs. Park set down her teacup with precision. Min-jun, could you give us a moment? I'd like to speak with Ada privately. Min-jun looked uncomfortable. Mother. It's fine, Ada said, meeting his eyes. She could handle this. He left reluctantly. As soon as the door closed, Mrs. Park's demeanor shifted. Not dramatically, just the pretense of warmth disappeared. Ada, she said, let me be direct with you. I don't believe in wasting time with pleasantries when we both know what this conversation is really about. Ada's pulse quickened, but she kept her face neutral. My son is part of one of the most important business families in Korea, Mrs. Park continued. His marriage isn't just a personal decision. It affects our family's reputation, our business relationships, our standing in society. Do you understand that? I understand that your family is important to him, Ada said carefully. Mrs. Park's eyes sharpened. That's not what I asked. Ada took a breath. Yes, ma'am. I understand that his marriage would have implications beyond just the two people involved. Good. Mrs. Park leaned back slightly. Then you'll understand why I need to be clear about what being with my son would actually mean. And this is a very large if our family were to accept you, you would be expected to assimilate completely. Learn Korean fluently. Understand our customs deeply. Attend family functions without complaint. Represent this family with dignity at all times. Put Min-jun's career and this family's interests ahead of your own ambitions. Ada felt like she'd been slapped, but she kept her voice steady. With respect, Mrs. Park, I have my own career goals, my own. Which would need to be reconsidered, Mrs. Park interrupted smoothly. The wife of a Park doesn't work in some corporate job. She manages the household, supports her husband, raises the children, maintains the family's social standing. That is the role. That's very traditional, Ada said, trying to keep the edge out of her voice. We are a very traditional family. Mrs. Park's smile was sharp. Let me ask you something, Ada. Why do you think Min-jun is interested in you? The question caught Ada off guard. I don't know, you'd have to ask him. I'm asking you, what do you think you offer him? Ada wanted to say love, connection, understanding, but under Mrs. Park's cold gaze, those things seemed naive. I think we understand each other, Ada finally said. We make each other happy. Mrs. Park actually laughed, short and humorless. Happiness, how Western of you. Let me tell you what I think. I think my son is going through a phase. He's always been the rebellious one, the one who pushes boundaries. And you, forgive me for being blunt, you represent something different. Something his father and I would never approve of, which makes you very attractive to him right now. Ada's chest tightened. That's not. But phases end, Mrs. Park continued. And when they do, people return to what's familiar, what's expected, what's right for their position in life. I've seen this before. Not with Min-jun, but with others in our circles. Foreign girlfriends, little rebellions, they never last. Maybe this is different, Ada said, adding how weak it sounded. Mrs. Park stood up. Perhaps, but I doubt it. And even if I'm wrong, even if Min-jun actually wants to marry you, you should think very carefully about whether you want to marry into this family, whether you're willing to pay the price that comes with this life. She walked to the door, then paused. My son has given you a taste of wealth and comfort. I'm sure it's seductive compared to what you're used to. But money always comes with strings, Ada. Always. The question is whether you're willing to let those strings become chains. She left Ada sitting there, heart pounding, tea growing cold. When Min-jun came back 10 minutes later, his face was anxious. How did it go? Ada looked at him, this man she was falling in love with, and realized she had no idea how to answer that question. So she smiled and said, It was fine, your mother is. Impressive. She didn't tell him what Mrs. Park had really said. That was her first mistake.